Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar series. I'm just going to do a quick introduction while we wait for a few people to show up, and then we'll get right into our webinar, where today you'll be learning about the drop and match lesson activity types. So just to let you know who I am, my name is Danielle Macklin. I am an Education Technology Specialist with NUITEQ. I also have 11 years of classroom experience teaching middle school social studies. Tonight with our demo, or with our webinar, I'm aiming at about a 15-minute presentation, and then I'd like to open up the floor for you to have an opportunity to ask questions about any of the features that we've covered. So I know that right now we do have a lot of people in attendance. I really appreciate that you're here. I know how valuable your time is. With everyone who is here, please make sure that you do have your microphone disabled, as well as your video, to help conserve bandwidth. If at any point during our webinar I'm going too fast, or if you have another question, please feel free to use the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. And you can send your messages to Jack Reed. He is going to be able to communicate those questions to me. I won't be able to see them while I'm sharing my screen with you. So once we go through our demo, we'll get to our Q&A portion at the end. If you would like, you're welcome to unmute your microphone and ask questions that way. Or if you want to continue using the chat icon, you're welcome to do that as well. Be as active or as passive as you would like in this experience. My goal is to just make you feel comfortable and walk away with some really great tips and tricks on how to navigate the features of Snowflake. So I think we're all ready to begin. I'm going to go ahead by sharing with you my screen, and I'm going to walk you right through those steps of how to create a lesson activity using the drop lesson type, as well as how to create a lesson using the match lesson type. So both of these activities can be found under the Create section of your lessons. And in our 16 lesson templates, you can also sort by assessment. So assessment's going to give you an opportunity to see actual scores that your students complete. So if you do choose to send these assignments out to a class, which I'll show you how to do later, then it will show you how the students performed on that particular activity. So just by clicking to assessment, it narrows down the field. I'm going to begin with the drop lesson activity type. So with all of our lesson templates, you'll see this screen. You'll have your left side where you input your data, and then on the right side of your screen, you're going to have the preview. When I create a lesson using drop, I often create it in different rounds. So I'm just going to, for the sake of this, just title it Round 1. If I wanted to create multiple rounds, I simply hit Create Round, and this feature pops down again. With drop, you're going to see as part of your data, you have two places to input information. In this case, I'm going to design a lesson that is geared more toward elementary ELA students, and I'm going to focus on parts of speech. So in this lesson, I'm going to have my students try to match the noun, verb, adjective, and adverb to the example. So I can start by typing what those are, noun, and providing an example of a noun. Fox. Verb, run. Adjective, funny. And lastly, adverb, quickly. So with my words, you'll see that right now we have the wheel spinning. We have our words written within the squares, and students are able to drag into the location so as you play on your touch screen. So this preview is showing you what it would look like as students were playing on the interactive panel. I also have the option where I can change the backgrounds. If I wanted, I could add images by browsing through my own content. So this would be just from my desktop, things I've downloaded, my desktop, my documents, any of the features on my computer. I also could add images just doing an image search. I always recommend when creating a lesson, make sure you're doing it without students present. You never know what will pop up with an image. So image search, typically it uses these keywords. So I might get an image of a fox, or I might get a picture of Megan Fox. It's whatever kind of relates to the word. I also can open up pictures from my Google Drive, my OneDrive, and we have a content gallery where we have preloaded images, pictures, backgrounds that you can use to help you. So I could search through photos, I could search animals, and I could see, is there an animal already loaded in? In this case, though, I'm going to stick with just using words. Close that out. I can also customize how I want my squares to look. When I hit Customize Content, I can change the tile shape. I can change it from a square, which it defaults to a diamond, or maybe that would be more of an octagon, or a circle. And you can see as I hit Update Preview, it shows what it would look like. There's also an opportunity to create this using what's called Simplified Mode. When I switch to Simplified Mode, my spinning wheel stops, so that all my students would need to do is just drag and drop the words into the correct locations. This is a really good feature for students who might be easily distracted, or maybe your younger kids who would have a hard time following the words around as they were spinning. So it's just one of the options that we have, a way to help you differentiate instruction. Once I'm happy with all of the content that I've created, and I can create many different rounds so that as my students answer it correctly, it would then go on to the next round. I also have the option to change my font size, and this is a feature we have on all of our Snowflake lesson activity templates. So we have our different font styles. I can change the size of my text. So these words I'm going to put a little bit bigger. I can change my color of the text, and then I can also change if there's a shadow. Right now it defaults with a shadow. Just makes the font almost like bold, and that is without the shadow feature. All of our lessons also have the opportunity to change the theme. It defaults with the Snowflake theme, but you can see we have a variety of different fun backgrounds already loaded for your students. And in addition, you can go ahead and change a background using files from your computer. So if I wanted to change to one of my fun little Arctic foxes, I can change my background, and then I can change the fit of how it would appear on my screen. With this particular lesson, you also have the opportunity to change the rules of gameplay. Randomized objects changes the order that you would see those. You also can do it as ordered, so it lines up nicely. And you can do randomized rounds. So if you had multiple rounds in this, it would go in different orders. This would be a really great activity to do and an option to use with the randomized rounds if you have your board divided into multiple zones. Then you can have students working on the same activity in the same lesson with the same content, but doing it in a different order, so they can't necessarily look at the other screen and see what their partners are working on. You also can set up a timer so that students have a set amount of time if you are doing that station rotation model before they had to switch to another activity. So this is all part of the creating and managing content. The other options that all of our lessons include is a section titled Lesson Information.
Danielle?
Yes. Oh, you startled me.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
We do have a question before you move on to the next.
Sure.
And that was, can you add your own fonts?
Can you add your own fonts? So if you're trying to come from this section of the text, no, you can't change it other than those fonts that you have. But you could create your own background graphics with your own fonts. You'll often see that a lot of our members on the NUITEQ team, our content creators, our EdTech specialists, when we design lessons, we use different design programs, be it Photoshop or Snagit or Google Drawings, and we'll create our own JPEG images. And then with that, we can create and change the font to add toward the background. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions before I move on?
Nope, that was it so far.
Okay, great. All right, so that answered our question about how to manage content should you want to change the font. You would just have to change by creating your own background. So with lesson information, you have your description. This is just where you would give a little more info about your lesson. Within the NUITEQ team, all of us who are creating content, we always try to make sure that our lessons have information about what skills and standards will this lesson address, how can your students play it, here's suggestions for other ways to use it beyond just maybe one zone on your board. So we always include that in our lesson description. You also can include and embed YouTube videos. So if you have a video, this was about parts of speech, that you knew you wanted to use, you would simply copy and paste the YouTube link right where it says URL. Or you can search through here and just simply type the content you wanted. So I could search parts of speech and see if there are any videos that relate to my lesson. Once I've selected my video, I can then decide, do I want that video to show before the lesson activity begins, or do I just want it linked to it? So just simply changing those options changes that. You also have an opportunity to edit the start and the end point of the videos. With a lot of the videos, maybe the first few seconds is an introduction. You don't need all of that information. You can have it start at a later time. Or if the video is really long and you only wanted a short section, you can have it end at a certain time as well. You also have the opportunity to set the age group of your students, the subject that the lesson relates to, and the country that it is created for or in. We use these features when lessons are loaded into the community so that other teachers can help search and narrow down the fields when looking for a lesson. You also are able to add in web links. This could be links to other websites that are helpful or that relate to your content. It also could be web links to Google Docs or PDFs that you would use in addition to this lesson. And then lastly, your keywords. Your keywords would be the tags that would be associated with your lessons. So I would maybe tag this with parts of speech, ELA, nouns, etc., etc., etc. And then finally, I have a chance to add standards. All of our lessons in the Snowflake community can be searched by standards. You'll notice we do have the Common Core standards, and we're currently in the process of creating lessons designed to meet each and every one of the Common Core standards, and then we will have lessons designed to meet those standards with extension activities and scaffolding. So we have all of these standards loaded in, so you could search if you're searching by your state or particular content. We have the ISTE standards as well. Or if you're not quite sure, but you know what it's about, you can search for the skills. So I know this would be about parts of speech. I could type in parts of speech, and then doing a search, it would pull up all of the standards that are related to parts of speech. So that's one option that you have when adding standards to your lesson. And then simply clicking save adds that to it. Once you've finished your lesson and titled it, so I would title this parts of speech, I then have the option to save it to the community. When you save a lesson to the community, it's available for any teacher to search, download, and use. They also have a chance to edit the lesson that you've created so that it is specific to their students and to their needs. The other option that I have is I could send this lesson to my students. When we create classes within our Snow.Live teacher dashboard, you can send these assignments directly to students, including the practice activities, not necessarily just the assessment ones. It will show you which students participated, and with this lesson, it would show you what their score was. So which answers did they get wrong? Which ones did they get correct? So those are the options, saving or sending. It automatically will save to your teacher dashboard, so you don't need to worry about hitting an extra save button. This is just if you wanted to upload it to the community, share it with your colleagues, or send it directly to your students. So that's our quick little overview on how to create a drop lesson. Before I move on to Match, are there any questions about this lesson template?
Yes, Danielle, we do have another question.
Great.
Is there a way to create folders in my lessons to organize the activities I create, such as a fractions folder for fraction activities, a multiplication folder for multiplication activities, etc.?
That's a really great question. We don't call them folders, we actually call them lists, but that is an option that you have. So I'll take a moment and show you how to do that. So if I go back to My Lessons, and this is just on the Snow.Live platform. If you're operating through your Snowflake app, you can also favorite your lessons, and that'll appear on a separate dashboard on your home screen on the Snowflake app. So once my lessons load, and I'm sorry it's taking so long, an option that I have under My Lessons is creating lists. So there's my part of speech lesson. If I click the three dots on the bottom right, I have the option to add it to a list. So a list would be like your folders. So here we can see I have a list of ISTE lessons, I have my practice lessons, demo lessons. I could create then my list for fractions, multiplication tables, whatever I wanted to title it. Simply add it. So I'll add this to my demo list. And now that's part of the folder. If I wanted to access that lesson, I can find it through my lists, waiting for my slow internet, and you can see the lessons that you have put into your list. So with your list too, if you wanted to have students participate in all of those activities, you could play randomize on your board, and all of the lessons you've put in there would go one right after another. Does that answer the question?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, it does.
Okay.
And I have another question.
Good.
That says, can you save the lesson and share it with a coworker before uploading it to the community?
Unfortunately, that's not a feature that we have right now. You would need to share it to the community, but then you could add it into a group. So a group would be kind of a collaborative space where you and your coworkers could work together, adding in lessons, so that then, I've seen this used in my former district. The second grade team had their shared group, so they would all add in lessons. So if it was happening in one classroom, teachers who are working in another classroom could then use that lesson as well. So it does need to be uploaded to the community, yes, unless I'm wrong.
I'm just going to ask, would it be possible to download the lesson into a Google file?
Absolutely, that is one route to do it. You could download it, you could save it to a flash drive, and then share it through that feature. So yes, you could download it.
Okay, so if you download them, you could download them into a common folder that you all had access to, and share it with just your small community that way, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay. Any other questions?
No, there are not at this time.
Okay, great. I'll go on to how to create a lesson using the match lesson template. So we did drop, now we have match. So again, you'll see kind of the same dashboard. You'll see the same preview screen and the same options as far as changing the font, the size of the font, the color, the theme, background, same things that we had in the drop lesson. We also see that in match. For this lesson, I'm going to create a secondary science themed one, and I'm going to do it about magnets. So for this lesson, again, I can have it multiple rounds so that I can have different kind of maybe themes or topics for each round, or just a way to divide up. If I have a lot of things that I want my students to match together, this kind of shortens it into smaller chunks. With this match, we have the first box would be for the definition. The second box is for the word, just to give you a quick preview of how that looks. I always recommend using the second box for if you're matching a vocabulary word, or if you're doing maybe a math problem and you want the correct answer. I would use the second box, just since it is a little bit of a smaller space, and it makes it a little easier for the students to be able to see. So in this case, I'm going to use some magnet words. So my first one is going to be an object that attracts iron and other magnetized objects. And my definition for this would be magnet. The next one, opposite ends of a magnet. The answer for that is poles. So you can see as I'm inputting my information, it's setting up right below. Right now I have it at randomized as my rules play. If I did set it to ordered, it would be a direct downward drop. Okay. So there was that preview. And then again, just like in drop, you can randomize it so that it's not necessarily the direct one. When students do answer it incorrectly, you'll notice this icon showing that, nope, that one's wrong. They can try it again until they get the correct answer. So I'll do one more just to demonstrate. Area around a magnet. And again, just like I had before, I have the opportunity to change the background. So I can use images from my own computer that I've already downloaded. I can do an image search. I wanted to search here. So this is going to pull up anything associated with the definition I put in, area around a magnet. So maybe I'd want to change it just to magnetic, which will probably be the same images. Once I find one that I'm happy with, let's look at that one. Simply click. Now that image appears below my text. I could delete the text, and it would just be the image. So very similar to drop, the design being a little bit more simplified, so that instead of the spinning wheel, you have the row. And again, you can go and change all of the fun backgrounds, adding in your own content specific. I taught middle school social studies, so typically whenever I was doing a lesson with my students, I would use a background that was related to whatever the subject was. So if we were talking about ancient Greece, I'd have a background related to that, maybe an image of the Parthenon. When I was talking with my 8th graders about immigration reform, I would maybe have a picture of Ellis Island. So it was just something to kind of relate to and make it more customized and personal for my students. Just like in our drop lesson and all of our lessons, we see we have the opportunity to add descriptions, YouTube videos, and then set the filters to meet the age group, the subject, and the country of our students. So that's our match lesson type. Are there any questions we have about this particular template?
Not at this point.
Okay. Are there any other questions in general about the lesson designs before I demonstrate how to share them with students?
No other questions coming in.
Okay, great.
Again, for those of you that are on the webinar, feel free to go into the chat, send a chat to me. My name is Jack Reed, and I will relay the question over to Danielle. And thank you for the questions that you have sent so far. We find it much more interesting when you ask questions, so thank you.
Yes. All right, so now if I wanted to take this lesson and send this activity to my students, so I'm going to just title it Magnets. If I select Send to Students, it'll show the classes that I've created. And you can see I have a lot of demo classes that I've made. All of those features are found under the class option in the teacher dashboard of Snow.live. So I will send this just to my test class. I can select multiple students, or maybe I wanted to differentiate my instruction so that I could send to just one particular student and then send a different activity to another student, different activity to another student. I can set my due date. So if this is a graded assignment and I wanted students working on it on their own device, maybe outside of class, I can set the date that it would be due before sending. So we'll say this will be due on Friday. Now that student would have that assignment.
Danielle, are you able to link classes with Google Classroom?
You are. That's one of the really great features of our class setup. So if we go to our class icon, I have the option to manage students. Under Manage Students, I can create a new class, which is a fairly simple process. I would title my class. I can add my students. This is really great too if you have students who maybe don't have email. I know a lot of districts wait until students are a little bit older before they give them email access. I can just add in a student name. So let's say I'm going to add one for a student named Sarah. I hit add. I can put in that student's email should they have it, or I can say this student doesn't have an email. When I do that and I add that student, it will auto-generate a name and a password that my student can use. The other option I have, to manage classes, is I can import from Google Classroom. So if I clicked this, I could then, and I don't have any Google classes set up, I could then add in from Google Classroom my rosters. When my students are in the class, now that I've done manage students, so I've created my classes, I've added my students, I can then review their progress. So I can see all of the assignments that I have sent out in my classes. So there's my class title. Here are some assignments that I've sent out. And I could see how my students have done. So if I clicked, say, this assignment, I could see that, oh, Danielle Macklin, she hasn't started. She hasn't done her lesson yet. She hasn't even opened it. So I have that option to see how my students are doing. With lessons such as Match and Drop, it'll show me what their score would be. So if they answered 50% correct or 75% correct, it'll also show me how long it took them to complete that activity. So if I'm seeing that my students are finishing it really, really fast and they're doing kind of poorly, I know that I can address that and go back and say, hey, Danielle, I noticed that, you didn't do as great as you probably are able to do. Why don't you try it again and take a little bit more time? It'll also show me my class average for the time and the score. So if I can see if all of my students are doing poorly, maybe then I need to go back and rethink, can I reteach this to make sure that my students are learning that? So that's one of the options in classes. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope, you're fine.
There is a question, which sharing tool is better to share lessons with students, Google Classroom or email?
It really depends on the needs of your district. I know that sometimes if you share just via email, if your students are not able to receive outside emails, some districts have set up that feature in their schools where it limits where they can receive email from. Like it has to be an in-network. So it would kind of depend on the needs of your student and probably the size too. As far as sharing though, once a lesson activity has been shared with the students, they should be notified that that lesson is in that class and that it has a due date if necessary.
Okay, can you send to Google Classroom?
Can you send to Google Classroom? Not at this time, not through this.
Okay, and I'm sorry, there are quite a few questions coming.
Oh, that's great. I'm so happy that people are participating.
So there's one here that I'm going to answer, and it says, can flip charts created for Promethean be imported? And so the answer would be for Active Inspire and for Smart Notebook. Flip charts can be imported. However, softwares are different. So just as anything that you buy that's created has different parts of it that don't always play together, that is very much so the thing for software. So both Promethean and Smart have certain proprietary aspects of their software that no one else is allowed to use. By that I mean they've developed certain things in code that other people are not allowed to use in their code, and they don't share that code with people because that's what makes them different. So the answer is yes, you can import things in. There's actually a tool that you can use in Canvas where you can go in and you download your Smart Notebook or Promethean Active Inspire flip charts to a CFF file, and then you can upload it through an IDFWB folder. You can also print to PDF, and if you print to PDF, those can be uploaded into Canvas as well or into the Media app. If you upload them into Canvas, they'll come in as a PDF. You're not going to have the same magic ink or pulling things out of a hat as you would in Active Inspire. However, you're going to be able to have all of the content that you created, so you won't lose your actual content. And then when you're in Canvas, you can actually bring in web pages, you can bring in any other video that you want to bring in to support what you've done in the past. So in the past, you may have had an Active Inspire Smart Notebook and you did not have anything other than that on your screen. At this point, using Canvas, you could have your flip chart up as a PDF and then have a video right next to it, and you could have web pages added in and have a much more dynamic type of lesson going on. We are going to do a later webinar on this topic, and so I think you'll get a little bit more in-depth answer to that. But for a quick answer, that what I'm going actually to meet with the district in a week, where that's what we're going to meet about. This is as quick as I can get in this type of environment. So it can be done. I would encourage you to use it by printing to PDF and uploading the PDF into Canvas or Media. I'm going to go down and read a couple more questions.
Great.
Our older students have Chromebooks, but our younger kiddos have iPads. Can students access lessons using an iPad? If so, is it web-based or through an app?
Yes. So with Snow.Live, if you set your students up with the class, then yes, they're able to access on their iPad, same functionality. With Chromebooks, I worked in a district where we had Chromebooks, and when I would send a lesson to my students, depending on the Chromebook they had, we had some that were touchscreen, we had some that were just with the mouse. They could still open those lessons through the class and play them just as if they would play them on a large screen.
Okay. And can students repeat the lesson to get better scores? And does the teacher get notified that this happened in a report?
That is a good question. You know, I unfortunately don't know the answer to that right now. But Jack, if you could make sure that you get the name of that person, I will definitely find that answer and respond back to you on it.
Okay.
I hope I got lucky with my students where they always did really well. No one ever tried to do it again.
And then I have one other. If creating classes through Google Classroom, is the login the same as their Google login, or will they be assigned an auto-generated username and password like when they are individually entered?
Again, that's a question I'm not sure if I know the answer to. Jack, could you speak to that?
I'm going to speak somewhat to it. So I'll answer. So there is single sign-on through Google. So if your district is a Google district and you use single sign-on, it should work fine with single sign-on. And from the sound of the question, it looks as though you probably are a single sign-on district with Google. If that's the case and you go through when you sign in, you'll see the Google single sign-on and you should be able to use that. In addition, we are at this point working to do integration with other single sign-on providers such as Link. And when that occurs, then it should work seamlessly with a number of different LMSs and SISs that are out there. So I think that works, and I'm glad that says that answers my question. So that's good. Great. I'm glad that answers your question.
Good. I'm glad you were able to answer that.
There were a slew of questions that came in all at once. So if someone asked something that I didn't answer, please retype it to me because I don't want to miss you. I have one more question that just came in. Do students need an account in Snowflake in order to use the lessons, or the teacher's login is enough?
So when you create a class in Snowflake, so I have like my test classes and I've added in my students. So I'll go back to this class. So they would use that login information. So if I added in an additional student, so like I have, we'll go back to, we'll say Daniel. I add in my student. If they have email, they have email. If they don't have email, again, I click the no email. It generates their username and password. Then students would simply go to snow.live, and then the login option. I'm currently logged in with my teacher account. When they log in, they would log in with that username and password, and then they would access kind of their student version of the dashboard. The great opportunity that students have in this, so it's not just playing the lessons and the activities that you've created for them, they also have the opportunity to create their own lessons. And I think this is a really powerful feature in that it puts students in charge of their own learning. It gives them that choice, which I know is really important. Also, the idea of choice and voice, so that students become more empowered learners. They have ownership over their education. Since our lesson templates are really easy to use, I know from my own personal experience, my students in 6th grade were able to create really, really great lessons. So often when we would get to an end of a unit, I would have my students look through their interactive notebooks and choose a certain number of maybe vocabulary words or concepts that we had covered, and then I'd give them parameters of, okay, I need you to create a lesson, use one of these 4 templates, make sure you have this amount of information, make sure you have a background, and write a description so that if somebody else played your lesson, they would know how to do it. And my students created really great review materials. And then since they were working on their Chromebooks, once they were finished, they would share it with each other. They would just take their Chromebook, walk over to the next student, and they would take turns playing each other's lessons. We kind of did that as like our pre-vetting process, and if the lessons were really good, I would let them upload it to the community or download it onto a flash drive, so then I could play the lessons on the big screen. For a lot of students who maybe are not as active of learners, who are kind of the ones who'd rather take a little bit of a backseat role, being able to share their lesson with their classmates gave them a really good feeling. Like, these are kids who maybe normally wouldn't come up to the board and want to participate, but now it's their lesson that their classmates are playing and that they're having fun with. It made them feel really good about what they've created. And they learned something too. They used that as that opportunity to practice these new skills. They also created really cute Christmas lessons for the 2nd grade students and went in and taught 2nd grade for an afternoon, which was really fun.
So I was just reading some questions, and I'm not sure if you just answered this one or not. Just trying to read as you were talking, so I apologize.
Sure.
Can the students play other lessons in the communities, or just the ones assigned by the teacher?
I'd have to look from a student perspective on the dashboard. I think that they can, I think they still have the opportunity to explore. So if they go through the explore page, they can search and open up other lessons as well.
And I have to say something about the beauty of teachers, and I'm not going to out this person, so don't worry. Teachers coming onto a webinar at 7 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock, whatever time zone you're in, are often coming after cooking or having to cook or with children or whatever. So I got a message with just some symbols in it, and I wrote back, did I miss something? And they're like, sorry, my son kicked the keyboard. So I have to give kudos to people that are willing to come onto a webinar to better themselves when they have children in their arms. That's a good feature.
Absolutely. You have no idea how much we appreciate everyone being involved, and I know how valuable your time is. And I know it's hard, when you leave those classrooms, sometimes you want to just leave work at work. And we know teachers don't ever do that. We always take stuff home, but we really appreciate that you are involved and that you're asking such really great questions too that help us as a content team and as ed tech specialists create better activities and better lessons for you.
So we're caught up with the questions, so if you have any more.
So one thing I will highlight, if you have not already downloaded our new 7.2 feature of Snowflake, please make sure you get that in. It has some really, really great new features. One of my new favorites is the ability to resize zones. So we all know that you can split your board into multiple zones and save those configurations, but now we have the feature where you can change the size and scale of those zones. So I'm already thinking of this would have been great when I was doing a lesson with my 8th graders on Genius Hour. I could have made the whiteboard this size, and I could have made the video this size. And so it's a really great way to kind of change the interface of that. So if you haven't downloaded 7.2, please make sure you get to it. And then also, if there's anything that I haven't addressed, if there's more information that you're interested, we do have a series of training videos that have been put together by the ed tech specialist Mirto. They're fantastic. She does a really great job going through all of the little details and nuances, both of the Snowflake application as well as Snowflake Online, so snow.live. You can access those videos at training.nuitec.com. And I will go ahead and actually send that out into a chat with everyone. Go ahead and stop sharing my screen. So those training videos can be found at training.nuitec.com. And if there's any questions that you have that I haven't been able to answer or that you think of later and you want to reach out to me, my email is danielle@nuitec.com.
Okay. Danielle, do you mind if I bring you for a second?
Yeah.
We have a question, and I'm going to try to make sure I'm getting the right thing. It says, can you show us where to download the program? So actually what Danielle is using is a web-based version of Snowflake, and it's just snow.live, so snow.live. And that is, so there are two different programs that we have. We have snow.live, which is a web-based version, and then we have Snowflake. Snowflake is an app that would come on your panel if it was purchased from one of our distributors and that sells our software. So we don't actually go out and sell it to school districts. We have partners that sell interactive panels, and the product comes loaded on the panel. However, the web-based version is just snow.live, and that's where you would access what Danielle has been showing you this evening.
And I'll share that link with everyone too.
And I will say, I do a lot of trade shows where I'm out talking to people, and I go and visit districts, and people think about standing at their computer to develop what Danielle's doing tonight. I would tell you, you probably would not like life much if you had to stand in front of a computer, in front of a panel, and try to type on one of those keyboards to develop this. So if you go to the snow.live address that Danielle just put up in the chat window, it's much, much easier. You sit at a laptop on a Sunday night, maybe a glass of wine, maybe a Diet Coke, and you develop your stuff that you're wanting to work on for the week. And it's much, much easier than doing it from a panel itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to the person that asked that question, if I didn't answer properly, then let me know and I will get back to you. I have another question that came up. This is, we don't have our boards yet. Are we able to access all of the website beforehand to play with it and learn? That's a tough question. You can ask your tech person about what your licensing is and how your licensing is running and what's going on with that. I also think you can probably go online and download a trial version. I'm not positive about that, but I don't want to go out into a web browser and check and see because I don't want to lose the program. If you will email me, my email is jr@nuitec.com,
Send that out.
Okay, so Danielle, thank you. Danielle will send that out to you. You can email me and I will send you what you need to do that. And I believe you'll get 90 days of use of the software through a trial version. And yes, it would be a really good idea to play with it ahead of time. And I would also recommend that you go to training.nuiteq.com and look at all of the training videos to see how to work with these things.
And keep coming to our webinars. We will be hosting we will have another one on Wednesday that Kelly will be hosting.
Which Wednesday?
Next Wednesday, the 11th. Yeah.
Okay, then we're going to take a break. Which dates are we? Do you know the days that will be coming up, Danielle?
We have a webinar on the 11th and on the 18th, and then we will be taking Christmas off as well as New Year's Day off.
Okay. And then we'll be back right after that.
Yes.
So please make sure to check out the training.nuiteq.com, and then of course come to the webinars and go online and play around. You can email any of us that you would like, and we'll get back to you with any kind of questions. Danielle, do you have anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you again for everyone who participated. I hope that you're able to walk away with some ideas of how you can use these 2 lesson activities. We do have an option, and once you save to the community, you can always tweet them out. So we'd love to see them too and see what you've come up with.
Okay. I would like to thank Danielle because I know it looks like this is really easy when she hops on and does this, but I can tell you she and I talked several times in the days coming up to it as she's preparing, and Kelly, the other person that does it, is the same. They really spend a lot of time preparing to try to give you the best experience. So Danielle, I would like to thank you for doing that. Again, I think everyone that's attended, we're very excited to be doing this, and we hope that we are able to share our excitement for education with you, and that we become this community that really reaches out to make learning a lot more fun for kids and a lot easier for teachers. Danielle, anything else?
No, that's it for me. Thank you everyone for attending.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday night. If you have any questions, feel free to email us in between that time. Thank you.